In this video, we're going to be talking about the number one concept that's at the core of whether you succeed or fail. And most people misunderstand this. And if you don't understand this concept, then you could be trying as hard as you can to get the things that you're going for in your life, and you'll never really not just get the success, but you'll never really feel the satisfaction or the fulfillment in all of those accomplishments. So stay tuned. We're going to dissect self-esteem. All right, on this show, we're going to be talking about what I think is only everything. I think it is the reason that we pretty much make all the decisions in our life. And I think it's a concept that most people misunderstand. And because we misunderstand it, we don't really make any positive changes, right? We don't actually improve our life. And this concept is self-esteem. We hear self-esteem talked about. We know that we should have higher self-esteem and we don't want to let things get to us. But on this show, we're going to really dissect what it actually means to have high self-esteem, low self-esteem. We'll probably talk about some myths or some different ways that we talk about not just self-esteem, but success and joy and happiness and all these things in ways that actually don't help. They don't support us. They don't help us live the life that we want to live. And so with me on the show today is a dear friend and somebody that I just admire and respect so much. Danita Sajus. Did I say your last name right? It's Sajus.
It's actually Sajus.
Sajus. Okay, I think
but
I was
you're close enough. No correction needed.
Between there, and like right in the middle, I was like, "You're saying it wrong." Anyway, Danita Sajus. It's a beautiful name. It's a beautiful person to go along with the beautiful name. And Danita has been doing the work. That's one thing that this woman has done. And we've known each other for 8 years, somewhere around there. 9 years. And she has gone through so many transformational shifts in her life. And she's a neurotransformational coach. She's been in many of our seminars. She teaches at my seminars, at our deep work coaching. She's a certified hypnotherapist. She's been in business for a long time. And she is one of the most powerful coaches that I personally know. And she's a perfect person to talk about self-esteem with, because I know this is something that you not only use in your coaching, but I know it's something that you've danced with personally with various intensity levels and various applications and different relationships and all the things. So let's just dive in, Danita. What do you want to say about self-esteem or anything else?
Well, I really want to identify and define, give a definition to self-esteem.
Perfect.
So, because I think we get it mixed up. It's used a lot in the industry. It's used a lot in personal development. And it gets confused with self-confidence. And so I want to identify what the difference is of self-esteem and self-confidence. So I'll start with self-confidence. Self-confidence is based on skill set. So confident from the tools that you learn, the skills that you learn to execute a business or a job. And self-esteem is how you feel about yourself.
Right.
Two totally different entities. And we use them interchangeably, which is dangerous. And a lot of what I notice is that most people are trying to build up self-esteem with self-confidence. So they're going to school, they're getting the degrees, and they think that if they know enough, then they'll have the self-esteem to serve the world.
So you're saying that people that know, because I think all of us on some level, like we know we should have high self-esteem. We're not supposed to let things rattle us and all that stuff. But the way that we think we're going to increase our self-esteem is through the skill set and the knowledge and all those things you were just talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people are getting degrees to get ready, to get ready, to get ready, to get ready, to get ready.
Mhm.
right? And so they become eternal students, invest a lot of money in education and skill set. But there's something in the self-esteem that is not matching up. And until you get that, uh, I want to say, cleaned up, rerouted, redesigned, recreated, you'll kind of go into this perpetual circle of self-confidence. If only when I get my MBA, then I can. But there's something in self-esteem that is not quite there yet.
Yeah.
And what I know about self-esteem is that it's finite, because we're born with 100% self-esteem. You
Mhm.
never hear kids saying, you know, are my thighs big? Do I have any wrinkles on my face? Babies don't do that. Babies represent pure joy, happiness. They have full confidence. If you look at a 3-year-old, there's a ton of characteristics that they have. Some of
Yeah.
them are joy. They trust a lot, and they're on fire. And then something happens.
Oh, that's a good cliffhanger right there. And then something happens. Yeah, obviously, a lot of the work that we do is helping people tap into those 3-year-old characteristics and going back to this time where we did it right. Like life. We did life right. We weren't worried about the wrinkles that you're talking about, the size of our thighs.
No judgment, no fear of rejection. We were good.
We were good, and we just had this perseverance, and it didn't even make sense. Like, we didn't have to wrestle with any of our temptations to quit or wrestle with negative head talk. Like, we just didn't have it. And so I'm glad you brought that up. But you said something a few moments ago that I want to go back to: the eternal student. And I was in a conversation just today, actually, and yesterday a little bit as well, about how it's easy as adults to stay in this student mode. It's easy to feel like we're making a lot of progress. And to put it in the context of what you were talking about, it feels like we're increasing. It might feel like we're increasing our self-esteem, but it definitely feels like, to our intellect, that we're increasing our confidence because we're learning, right? We're learning more things. We're expanding our awareness. We're expanding our knowledge, and maybe we're putting things into practice, and we're, gaining a little bit of experience sort of behind the scenes while we're learning. But until you actually go out and apply, until you actually go out and put your heart on the line, your vulnerability, then all this collection of knowledge, this eternal student, it's almost like this eternal, what's that place right between heaven and hell? I don't know. Purgatory. It's like this eternal, like, student purgatory,
Right.
right? Like, you're stuck. But it's an illusion of progress. I think it's an illusion of progress because it does feel like we're learning things, and we are probably learning things, but we're not making any forward progress because we're actually not applying things. And so the conversation that I've been in the last couple of days is the reason we don't apply, the reason we don't take action is because that's where our fears live, right? There's no threat in learning. If you're just learning, your fears are not being threatened because our fears are like, we don't have a fear of learning. We don't have a fear of paying attention. We don't have a fear of taking notes, right? We have a fear of rejection. We have a fear of failure. We have a fear of speaking. We have a fear of the actions. We don't have a fear of the consumption of the learning. And so that was a big thing that a lot of people really latched onto, this idea that learning isn't threatening. Only the action is threatening. So I know that is going to relate to the cliffhanger that you just that left for us. So what, and feel free to obviously talk about anything that I just said, but let's dive into why the action is threatening and why we have these fears based on whatever that something is that happened.
Yeah, I love what you said. Yeah, it's the action, because we can learn so much and never test it. Because what we need is evidence. evidence that it works. And especially for entrepreneurs, like the second we put ourselves slash ego on the table, it's a different game.
Yeah.
And what a lot of people are doing is maybe they're an HR executive and now they want to open up their own HR entrepreneurship business. It's not transferable. The skill set is. But now you've got a corporation that's covering your ego. You get to make mistakes. You're not quite tested. But when you transfer it to your own business, now all the limiting beliefs start to bubble up, right?
Yeah, I see that a lot. That is a good point. I see that a lot where people have a lot of experience. And when I say I see it a lot, I see it a lot in the coaching industry where people have a lot of experience, whether it's HR, or even sometimes they've been behind the scenes for other coaches and they've done everything exactly that they're wanting to do on their own. But the only variable is what you're saying, they're now the product. And as soon as they're the product, you have people that could put together marketing campaigns. You have people that know how to run a business, people that know how to do operations, people that know how to manage their time. Like they know how to operate a business, sometimes a multi-million-dollar business, but put them on the table, as you said, and everything goes out the window.
That's where the self-esteem jumps in.
Right. That's
right?
true, because if I'm selling your product and somebody doesn't like it, well then who cares? That doesn't like it. It's just a number to me. But if they don't like me as the product, right, then they rejected my self-esteem along with the
right. My business, it has my name on it.
Yeah.
Whole different ball game. And people don't know why they do this dance of procrastination, because they know the stuff, but they just, to put your ego on the table. When I say ego, I'm saying it in a gentle way, putting ourselves, putting our names out there. It's our biggest fear as humans. You're not alone, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's a good one. Having a lot with clients where they're like, I don't know, I know the stuff, but I just can't leap in. And that's where the self-esteem conversation has got to be addressed.
That's a really important piece, because a lot of people know what to do, but they're just not doing it. And so if you know how to stop procrastinating and you're not doing it, if you know how to put together sales calls or funnels or marketing or messaging or whatever it is that you know you need to do, if you're not doing it, if you have the skill set and you're not doing it, has to be self-esteem, right? Wouldn't you agree with that? Like, that's the only other option. Especially if you know that doing this work, whatever the action is going to lead to some kind of benefit. Like everybody knows making more phone calls, if you're in a sales position, is going to increase your income. Everybody wants to make more income so they can use the money however they want to use it. So if you know what to do and you know that doing it will benefit you and you're not doing it, well, that doesn't make any sense, because it's this underlying unconscious piece. So that's like a diagnostic for people. Hopefully people can take away, because I think, I mean, I see this all the time too, as I know you do, that people just think, oh, I must need to learn something more. I must need to learn something different. The last thing that I learned didn't get me in action, so it's the thing that I learned that's at fault. Therefore, let me do something else to maybe get me in action. And that certainly feeds the perpetual, eternal student cycle.
So good. So good. So back to self-esteem.
Self-esteem.
This is where everything happens. And you can imagine a 3-year-old, right?
Yep.
I mean, think of a niece, a nephew, a son, a daughter, a child in the playground. They have zero fear. They're creative, they trust. And then something happens. And something happens, and it could be very innocent, where mom says, shh, stop talking. Right? And when a child is probably up till 5 years old, their logical mind has not developed yet, so they're still based on emotions.
Mm.
And between the imprint age of 0 and 7 is when 80% of our beliefs are created. So when mommy says, shh, shh, keep shushing you or telling you talk too much or quiet, be quiet. She's doing it. Maybe she's embarrassed or she doesn't want to answer the questions and she's just got 2 other kids that she's got to do. You have 2 other siblings she's got to deal with and you're asking questions and it's not the right time, all in innocence. But what children tend to do is they make that mean something. My voice doesn't matter. I shouldn't be heard.
Mm.
I'm different, you know. And so that label subconsciously, because they don't have any logic yet, gets put on them. And so, and then by the age of 8, it's locked and solid. And so those are called limiting beliefs. Something was said or done to us, and it could be even a teacher, right? And say, oh, you got this wrong, or some people have heard you'll never amount to anything, you struggle, you have ADHD, so you have to go to a special classroom, so now you feel different than your peers.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and then what happens is the belief gets locked in, and then we just rinse and repeat for the rest of our lives. Right. And that's the subconscious mind.
What do you mean by the rinse and repeat once the belief?
We rinse and repeat the belief. We go to find evidence of this truth that I talk too much. And, you know, so I'm going to slow down my voice and I won't speak back because mommy said this. And so, you know, we live 10% on earth in our logical mind. The other 90% is locked up in the subconscious mind. And that vault remains shut. And so that's where all our limiting beliefs, 80% of it by age 7. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah, right? I remember hearing that at some point in time, a long time ago. And it didn't make sense to me at the time because I'm like, I've learned a lot since age 7. You know, you can't tell me that the majority of what I've learned is locked away back in those early ages. But what I've learned since is, and what you're saying is, it's not that, you know, we don't keep learning beyond that, but the majority of our beliefs about who we are and what's safe to do and is the world a safe place and how am I supposed to behave, right? If I'm a little girl, I'm looking to my mom or mother figure. If I'm a boy, I'm looking to my dad or father figure. So it's all of those things that really form this solid base of beliefs and identities and values and all the things that we operate with, and then we take that to the rest of our life pretty much. You know, I remember having a thought not too long ago that most of us adults are running around with the belief system of a toddler still, based on what you just said. It doesn't mean that we haven't learned since we were a toddler, but the beliefs that we're still operating on were our toddler beliefs. You know, 3, 4, 5.
And it all goes back to that. Like we can learn a ton logically, but in our hearts, the memories run through our bloodstream. And those are the ones that always win.
Always win right there. That's why all of this information, even when we're great students, if we're stuck in that eternal student purgatory, all the information is not going to overpower what you just said. What's in our body and what we've decided and what we've been believing since we were little will always win. And I want people to hear that with hope, because it can change. That's the key here, right? This isn't like you were just born with a certain set of traits or certain collection of characteristics and you can't ever change them. No, but it's about understanding that everything that you are is a product of everything in your past. I mean, it's just as simple as that. And it doesn't have to stay that way. I think that's the key that hopefully will lead to people being hopeful that, you know, I can actually change this stuff. And I know that's a lot of the work that you do.
And children learn by watching. They're not you know, they're watching the show at home.
Yeah.
And really the only people that we have to watch that young are our parents or parent.
Yeah.
And so money beliefs, the words that they say, money doesn't grow on trees, or we can't afford that right now. And all of those little sayings get ingrained.
Yeah.
And then we think that, I remember my dad saying, it's easy to make money, but hard to manage it.
Mm.
Right? And so he didn't know where to put his money. And so I grew up with that. And he says, if you don't have the cash, you don't buy it.
Yeah.
Didn't believe in credit cards. And so anytime I put something on a credit card, even a debit card, there was some sort, and this is 40 years later, right? There was some sort of buyer's remorse
Huh.
because I'm breaking, quote unquote, daddy's rule, the echoes of our parents,
Right.
because we're watching the show, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And if we just recognize that it's just the recipe that we have, right, without judging it. I mean, we are who we are. Our parents are exactly who they were or are, and they'll never be anything different, and will never be anything different in our past. I just think a lot of us need to, and this is still a journey for me in certain areas as well, but we just need to recognize our recipes instead of judging them. You know, instead of holding our parents in contempt for not being as good as they were supposed to be. You know, they were supposed to teach us this and that. It's so easy to look at our parents and focus on all the ways they messed up, right?
Right.
And then
The blame game.
exactly. And then we get to live our life with this story that it's not fair because, you know, my parents weren't who they were supposed to be. And of course, there are people that have dealt with massively traumatic childhoods, and I'm not in any way trying to insensitize or be insensitive rather, or trivialize any of that. And the idea that we're stuck to our past for whatever reasons is not going to help us create a better future.
Right. And like you said, there's complete hope, because having the awareness that, oh, that's not my voice, right?
Yeah.
That's my dad's voice. So his whispers will remain, but I will choose otherwise, right? And so it's just kind of like the awareness that, you know, that really, wait a minute, that wasn't my story, right? I just adopted it because
Right.
it's all I heard, right? And so, and we can go back and change some limiting beliefs. And I think as humans, we all have them, including myself. And the biggest one is I'm not enough, right? I'm not enough. I'm not worthy. This love is not available to me. I mean, there's some core ones, and we all have them, just the details are different.
Yeah.
And so how do we step out of that comfort zone to be pushed and to heal that piece, and understand it more, so that we can heal from the belief that may not even be ours.
Yeah, that's actually exciting to
It
me.
is exciting.
I hear you say that, because if it's not ours, if it was just given to us just through repetition or through some source like dad or mom that we really hold dear or sacred to us, then at any point in time, you know, we could put that story down. It's not even our story. I think that's a really key point, that these are stories, these are thoughts, these are not a piece of who we actually are. And that's why things can change. And, you know, what you just said about being not good enough and unlovable and so forth. I mean, that's the juicy one, right? That's the deep one, about who we are. And that's where self-esteem plays a part, not plays a part, but that's where self-esteem lives, in our belief of who we are.
Yeah, and if we can look at self-esteem as being finite, like the self-esteem I had at 4 is still solid and it's still there. It's the packing on of clay or whatever it is, the clay, mom says, shh, one piece of clay comes on me.
Right.
Then the teacher says, you're not doing it right. Another piece of clay, right? And so underneath all that clay is our self-esteem, and it's solid.
Yeah.
It's finite, it's there, it's 100%. So as we start to peel away these layers of clay, then we can get to our true self. And go back to the characteristics of our 3-year-old.
So how do we do that? But like, what's, I mean, obviously I have my own thoughts and we come from a lot of the same philosophies. In your experience with the work that you do, whether it's hypnotherapy or more of like traditional coaching, what are some of the things that you see that come up for people, whether it's details or just processes or what have you, that that's like like the ways that people generally fix or heal their self-esteem or allow them to access, like you said, the self-esteem that's always been finite?
So I'll give an example. I had a client once who was, who is an attorney, and he does very well for himself. He makes about $40,000 a month. And he said, Danita, as quick as I make $40,000 a month, I spend exactly $40,000 a month.
Yeah.
There's a little piece in my little boy that doesn't feel worthy of love, worthy of money, worthy of my law attorney practice. And we went back. I did a little hypnotherapy on him. We went back to different scenes. And one of the scenes was Christmas Eve. And he was so excited. He could smell the cider. His whole family was there. He was 5 years old. And his aunt said, let's gather and take a picture together. And so they all gathered in the living room. And she looked at him and said, get out of here. You're ugly. Ooh. And he ran underneath the catering table and he started crying. It became this whole thing Christmas Eve. Another scene we went to, he was, his parents were throwing a party on Miami Beach and they hired a band and he loves drums. And he went up to the drummer to ask him a question. At this point, he's 6. And this drummer goes, get out of here, kid. Get out of here, you know, get out of my face. And kid runs away. And so we talked about how do we take those instances from your childhood to see how it's affecting you today. Call it daisy chaining. And what he found out is that he's an attorney hiding in his house, afraid to get more clients, even though logically he wants to have more clients.
Sure.
So he was able to relate the past to how it's showing up in the future and say, that's not me anymore. Because now I'm 45, I've got more wisdom, I'm not 5 anymore. If someone says that to me, I can just brush it off or say something back to them. And it was so beautiful, this dance that he did to get the knowledge that, wow, that really isn't me. It's something that happened to me and I lived through it, right? And now I can reframe it. And another way that you can deal with it is just do more of the characteristics that who you were at 3. Like be more joyful, be more trusting, be more happy, be more creative. Yeah. And adding more of that self-esteem characteristics to your life will start to shift the beliefs of clay that were put on you.
Yeah, that's really good. I had a client recently start coloring because those were some of the memories that were really powerful for her. You know, back then, as you're talking about this, accessing the time in our lives when we didn't have all these fears. And essentially that's what healing self-esteem is. And I really want to highlight what you said earlier, because I think it's so critical for people to understand. Self-esteem doesn't have to be raised. It just has to be rediscovered. It has to be uncovered. Because it's down there still. No matter what we've experienced in life, this is my belief. Our self-esteem has never taken a hit. It's never lowered. But we might have put a lot of covers over it. We might have created a lot of distance between ourselves and our self-esteem, added a lot of clay, like you're saying. So we might have created a large amount of what feels like, distance is the word that's just coming up to me, feels like a lot of distance between us and our high self-esteem. So that's why we think we need to raise it. But it's really just about going back and accessing it. I don't know, for whatever reason, I've never had this thought before, but it's kind of like a full suit, right? Like, let's say we realize that we're emotionally naked and we feel like we don't have any self-esteem in order to brave this dangerous world with, right? We don't actually have to go get each article of clothing. We don't put a sock on one at a time and then, put our pants on and get the belt. Like, we're not doing these things one at a time. You can actually access the entire suit. The entire thing can come back. Now, it doesn't, I also don't want to make it sound like it's so simple, like a flip of a switch, because it's not, but it's there. And I think if we understand that there is what we're looking for, it's there, then hopefully it'll make us want to go search for it. But I know you know this, and I want to be also really, really clear about this. Even though our self-esteem is accessible, I've not yet met the person that can find it on their own. Because we're the ones that created the distance. We're the ones that grabbed the clay. We're the ones that have been creating all these stories. So on our own, we're not going to go back and ask the questions that are required for us to ask and confront the things that we need to confront, or just remember the really positive stuff. A lot of people are scared of doing this work, or they just resist it because they think it's going to be so awful and so terrible and so painful, because they feel like they just got to go back into the childhood quicksand of all their pain and trauma and all that stuff. I'm finding, especially more recently, I don't know why this is, maybe it'll come to me as I say it, I'm finding a lot more recently that we don't even really deal with a lot of the pain. A lot of times we just re-access some of the good memories and get to that place, like you're saying, who were we back then? And if we can access that piece of us, then that can start this transformation. I think so many people have this connotation of transformational work equals like deep childhood trauma therapy, and you're going to have to cry your way all the way back to your little childhood, and it's going to be tough, and you've been carrying this around for 40 years, so it's going to take 45 to cry it out. And it's actually not that way.
Yeah, there's a lot of good that comes up in transformation that we forgot, because we're repeating the clay stories. And that is such a disservice to our souls.
Ooh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's a disservice, because there's a lot of good. I had a client who had a lot of trauma in her childhood, like trauma, very heavy trauma. And then she forgot that she used to ride her bike. She went back to the house where she had the trauma. Like, she avoided this block for 35 years because she remembered all the clay. And she knocked on the door, and an old woman, and she explained, I used to live here. I just want to peek in. And when she peeked in, she saw her little 4-year-old girl on a tricycle, giggling, riding around the living room table. There was a coffee table with a little Jet magazine on top, and she was laughing, but she forgot.
Yeah.
She forgot all the delicious, fun memories in the ice cream store and all these images came up because we're so focused on the clay to mean something that we don't see the good in our childhood. Yeah.
That's a really good point. I don't know that I've thought about that or really discussed that. That I could probably make a case that for most of us, at least, there's probably more good than bad. And yet we remember the bad. And so it feels like that's the only thing that we have back there. And I think the reason that we remember the bad is because we're just trying to protect ourselves from future pain, right? So that's why we light up the clay and the stories that are going to protect us. And, you know, the world's dangerous and certain people are dangerous. We do that because we don't want to get hurt again. But then if that becomes the majority of our experience, like if that's what the majority of our past is in our memory, then that's probably going to be the majority of our experience in the future, because that's just how we're oriented, right? We're just oriented to try to avoid all the landmines.
Yeah.
And this idea of reigniting who we were and all these memories that come up, it's so powerful and so profound. And there's nobody in my years of doing this work, you know, over 15 years, there's nobody that can't do this work. Like there's nobody that is incapable of healing. It's just that there's a lot of people who are unwilling to heal. And I would imagine you would agree with this, that a big factor in that is because they misunderstand the process. Like if people really knew what was possible
In 10 minutes, sometimes.
Right. In 10 minutes, in 20 minutes, in 10 hours, in 10 days, in 10 weeks. What if it takes 10 weeks? What if it takes 10 months, right? Compare that to never.
Right.
I mean, 10 months is a lot shorter than never. And I'm glad you brought that up, just putting a time on it. We have such a microwave society. It's like, I'm only going to do this work if I can be fully healed by tomorrow afternoon, you know, because I got a photo shoot.
6, yeah.
Yeah. If you could just get this done before I start watching TV. But yeah.
And I think one of the things is the understanding of the subconscious mind and how it works, right? So one of its main purposes is to keep us emotionally and physically safe.
Yeah.
So the physical part is super important, so we don't wake up and walk into traffic, walk into burning buildings. But that emotional part, when something happens to us that hurts us, disappoints us, the subconscious mind kicks in and goes, that will never happen to you again.
I got you.
So that's where the clay story stays on and activated for the most of your journey. So it's just protection. Yeah. And then you can be like, thank you so much. I'll take it from here, right? I got this. Like, right. I understand you're trying to protect me, but this scenario will be safe, you know? And so understanding that we all have it, you're not alone, right? And understanding that it's just protection. Procrastination, the I don't know syndrome is a strategy. I'm not sure, you know, all of these protection, I'm not ready. All of this is protection.
Yeah.
Because the mind goes, what if?
Oh, the what if.
What if?
That's the scary question.
Right.
Only because of the way we answer it. It's actually, the question itself could be really powerful if we answer the question. But yeah, how many of us are trapped by what if? What if it doesn't go well? What if
it does go well?
I know, right? Like, you just go ahead and answer that question. So what about, one of the things that I know you talk about, I talk about, I think it's really important, is I don't know the best way to position it, but the internal, external let's just
game.
call it like, yeah, game. Okay, game of self-esteem. The internal, the external. So what's happening there? Tell us about that game.
So good. So the internal external game. So when we think, because our self-esteem has never changed, right? I don't have a water that's low enough, but when we think and believe our self-esteem is low, let's say it's down here, right?
Mm-hmm.
We look for external validation. And I think there's 5 A's. Sean, you taught me this. This was so good. We look for appreciation, affection, acknowledgement. There's 2 more A's.
Yeah, what are they? I remember teaching it a long time ago, and I haven't taught it.
Yes, so good.
What'd you
There's
say?
5 A's.
You said appreciation,
Affection, acknowledgement,
acknowledgement, acceptance.
appreciation.
I think you said appreciation for. What about acceptance? I think
Acceptance.
acceptance, and yeah, maybe the next one will come to me.
Yeah. So there's about 5 of them.
Yeah.
And what's so dangerous about this journey is the person or persons or people that you're looking to give it to you could be a third full too. So they can be giving you all that they have, but it'll never fill your glass. And so it's super dangerous, and it may not last.
Right.
So you can have 10-gallon love and the person's pint size, and they're giving you all that they have. They don't have enough to give to themselves, let alone overflow to give to you. There you go.
So yeah, so my water bottle is maybe a fifth of the way full here. So what you're saying is I could even pour out everything I got, and yours will still potentially be not
feel
full.
like I got nothing.
Right.
Because you can't fill it. And it's a super dangerous game when you're dealing with factors you don't control. And the factors are other human beings.
That's it. No big deal. Just
the only person you can really count on is you. So if you can fill your own cup at 100%, then anything that you get external is bonus.
I think this is really tough for a lot of people because we also simultaneously have a negative connotation toward being selfish. So the idea of filling your own cup conflicts with what we're supposed to do if we're a good person, which is to not be selfish and just constantly take care of other people. What's your what are your thoughts on?
If you're depleted at 1/5 full, you really can't give anybody else your 100% because it's all you got. And so, and how do you set healthy boundaries to learn to say no, or I'm going to excuse myself from that event, or this idea of healthy boundaries for self-preservation. And it's not selfish, right? It's not selfish because if you're not 100%, how can you serve your children, your family, your clients? It's a tough road because you're operating from a cup that's not full. So fill it up and then serve.
Yeah, you mentioned boundaries. Do you think boundaries, like setting boundaries, upholding boundaries, is always a self-esteem issue?
Yes.
Yeah, this is something that I just started talking about just a couple of days ago, actually. I agree, because if you think about what is a boundary, a boundary is something to protect. If it's a physical boundary, like a wall or some kind of a fence or something like that, then it's to protect. But the boundaries that you're talking about is like setting boundaries, guarding your time, telling people that this is not okay. You know, you can't treat me that way. Those kinds of boundaries are obviously not physical. They're not tangible or visible, but they're still designed to protect. So what is it that boundaries protect? And if boundaries are protecting you, then the question is, how valuable are you? Because the only thing that we would protect is something that has value. And so if you don't have a sense of high value as a person, then you're probably not going to set any boundaries or very strong boundaries, because your perception of yourself is that you're not very valuable. You're not valuable enough to protect. And so this could be another sort of diagnostic check-in for anybody listening or watching. If you have boundary problems, then we can pretty much deduce that you have a self-esteem problem. And that's manifesting in your resistance toward setting boundaries. And a lot of times it's not just this general, like, I don't like myself.
Right.
Sometimes it's contextual. I was doing some work with a client a couple of days ago, and it was contextual. She sets boundaries really strong in certain areas, but in this one area, she didn't. And so that one area had something that we needed to dive into. It was related to self-esteem. It was related to value. But I think another big mistake that a lot of people make in this industry is we universalize everything, right? We try to make everything general. Like, here's the one way to get rid of your self-esteem issues. Here's the one way to increase confidence. Here's the one way to do the thing that is dependent on a million other factors, but I'm going to sell you this product or this idea that there's one way to do it. And I'm going to tell you the one way to do it. And because we're constantly consuming these quick fix, easy approaches, it actually lowers our hope. I mean, would you agree with that? Like, the more that you
Absolutely.
try certain
There's no
things,
cookie cutter solution to your details of your story.
bingo.
That's super dangerous, right? There's
Why
not a
use the
book
word
to say
dangerous?
how to build self-esteem 101, right? That person would be a multi-billionaire. And I think going back to boundaries, boundaries are an expression of self-love.
Mm. That's a jarring statement.
Yeah. Yeah, healthy boundaries, right?
Yeah.
Is an expression of self-love. Like, no, you know what? I deserve to work out. I deserve to take time and get a massage. I deserve a bubble bath. Like, all of that is self-love. And it's really about, who do I need to put on notice to let them know that I am going to take this time. It's not a dialogue, it's a monologue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who can I put on notice to say that I'm going to take time for me?
You said healthy boundaries. I think that's a critical distinction. As you said that, I thought some people use boundaries almost like a weapon, where you can't get close to me, I'll never let you in. And a lot of times that's coming from a place of fear, coming from a place of, maybe self-loathing or something like that. But those aren't healthy boundaries. Those are weapon boundaries. Those are stay away, I'm scared of
I was
you.
that girl.
Yeah.
In romantic relationships, I was that girl, never fully in, just in case.
Just in case.
Ooh, I learned some things, Sean.
Yeah, go there.
Just in
Now that you
case.
brought that up, go there if you will, whatever level of depth.
Yeah, I think I used to date, we call milk cartons. Milk cartons have expiration dates. Because I think I was so fearful of abandonment because even though I say I divorced my husband but typically, I mean, actually, he left the relationship 2 years before I divorced him
Mm.
in his actions. And so the truth is, I got left. Hard pill to swallow, but it's real. So
Yeah.
my subconscious mind kicked in and said, well, that was a macro trauma. And here's what's not going to happen in the future.
Yeah.
You'll be in control and you'll leave them before they leave you.
Oh, right there.
Right. And so I was that girl, not proud of it. I'm better, you guys. Pray for me. But I was that girl.
Yeah. I'll hurt you before you hurt me.
I'll hurt you before you hurt me. I'll leave you before you leave me. And when I say leave, it's I'm done. Please don't contact me. Delete the phone number through out the phone. Like, it's so cut and dry because I can't take the risk
Mm.
of being abandoned again, because then that means I'm not valued, worth enough, desired.
Right.
100 things, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's juicy.
And I could probably chase that back to when I was 9 and I was coming home from vacation and my 18-year-old sister was gone.
Mm.
And my dad said she had an ultimatum, live under his rules or she can leave, and she decided to leave. And I never got to say goodbye. And I was told not to look for her. And so that feeling of abandonment for her, and then thinking that I could be abandoned.
Yeah.
So the beliefs run deep.
Yeah, they do.
My little 9-year-old couldn't figure it out. It goes, wait a minute, I could be eliminated. Hold, please, right? Let's reevaluate that. And then it grew into, and then I got, quote unquote, in my mind, abandoned by my ex-husband.
Yeah.
And then, so now that's such a hot button trigger for me that I avoid it at all costs. I'm better. I've been in this work for 10 years.
I want to talk about that. I want to hear, like, what would you say that you did or experienced, or, just kind of paint the picture of how did that shift for you? Because here we're talking about self-esteem. And so you were taking the abandonment as some form of, I'm not good enough, or I'm unlovable, or what have you. So now where are you, and how did you get there?
Where am I? I'm not that girl. Like, I'm doing all things different. I was also very emasculating. Let's be clear. I have a lot of masculine energy. I could be a boy, but I'm not. And then the New York in me doesn't help. So when she shows up, it's not pretty. So I did a lot of personal development work, 10 years of it. Cried my eyes out, bawled my eyes out, which is not everybody's journey, but there were some uncried tears and understanding and knowing that my dad was doing the best he could to salvage his other 2 daughters, and having a conversation with him, asking him to release, because then I tried to be the perfect daughter so I wouldn't be eliminated, and I was 48. Like, where was I being eliminated from? From his eyes.
That right there, I was trying to be the perfect fill in the blank. Doesn't matter if we're talking about daughter, husband, wife, person. I was trying to be the perfect blank so that I'm not, in your story, eliminated, or so that I'm not abandoned, or so that I'm not attacked, or so that I'm not
left.
Yeah. Like that, you just gave a fill in the blank statement that could apply to pretty much everybody. I tried to be the perfect blank so that blank wouldn't happen. And then we only live the rest of our lives filling in those blanks.
Yeah, filling in those blanks and avoiding the inevitable. Not inevitable, but like, how do you manage that? I think I've been in this work long enough and I'm a student like you would not believe.
Yeah.
Um, I got to figure Danita out. And I've gone through leaps and bounds of healing past relationships without even the other person knowing. And and I think that's where I came to peace with a romantic relationship, um, and and doing everything different. I want to be clear. The abandonment dance still goes on behind the black curtain, even in my current relationship, right?
Yeah.
My
Which
boyfriend and I call it
yeah.
PTSD. I do my PTSD dance, I re-choose them, and then I continue. I re-choose them, and then I continue. I might re-choose them every day because I know the dance has nothing to do with him. And I don't want to, for my next to pay for my ex, or pay for my dad, or
Yeah.
pay for my history of my fears and my limiting
History.
beliefs, because it's not fair.
Yeah. Ooh, that's good. Yeah. You don't want, again, fill in the blank. If it's not relationships that somebody's dealing with, you don't want this thing, this opportunity, this person to pay for whatever you brought into the scenario. And this idea of um, re-choosing, I think, is a really important one. This idea that even though we do this work, we still dance with the stories that we've been telling for a long time. I mean, these are neurological. At a certain point, they're in our brain and they don't even need any effort to run, just because we've been running them for years and years and years and years, all the way back to the toddler that we were talking about. So I think a lot of people need to understand that you can't just turn those off. I mean, if you can, I don't know how.
You'd
And I'm
be the first human, yeah.
the first person in human history, if you learn how to do it, without turning your brain off, right? You can momentarily numb them out, but that doesn't turn them off. They'll just come back as soon as you sober up, or as soon as you reintegrate into your awareness. But this idea that even after doing this work for a long time, these thoughts are still going to be there. You still might have to dance. But I think what you said that's so important for everybody to understand is, and having those thoughts come back, recognizing that it's your, as you said, your PTSD dance, or just recognizing that it's things from the past showing back up, or recognizing that these are just thoughts that have been going on in your head for a long time. They don't control you, and you can notice them and still opt back in to a relationship or to a commitment, even though they're there. And I think a lot of people believe that the first step toward a life of success is to get rid of all their fears and get rid of all their doubts, and not just get rid of them in the moment, but get rid of them to the point where they'll never come back again. And then you could take action and everything will be great. And you'll hit all the targets that you want to hit. And it just, I mean, to think that that's even possible is comical. But a lot of people think that not only is that possible, that's the way it's done. So I'm really glad that you said what you said. And, I want to really highlight it for everyone, that this could be a dance forever. I mean, we're not shutting off all the challenges in our brain and becoming this, robot of success for the rest of our lives, nor would we want to. That wouldn't be fun. So to know what's possible and what's not, and what we need to keep making effort toward, is really important for people to keep opting back in.
And that, like you said, there's no deletion process. And so I think my victory in this is managing it better.
Yeah, bingo.
Right? It's managing the limiting beliefs and knowing, this might have felt like this, but this really isn't true. Or, I manage it better. And I'm not so quick to verbalize it. Just to sit
That's
with it
powerful.
for a minute.
Yeah, you haven't deleted it, you manage it better. You manage humanity. That's the thing, is we're humans. We can't turn some of the stuff off that most people think you can, and most people think you should. You can't. So it's a matter of managing, no doubt, rather than deleting. I like the way that you.
Yeah. And it's managing. And like you said, fear, a lot of people say, I just need to get rid of my fear so I can start this business. And something that you said that always resonated with me, like fear is in the pavement that you
Yeah.
need to walk to success. So there's no eliminating. You're going to step on it. It's going to ignite, right? And then this whole idea of you probably, it's very difficult to do it alone. That's where accountability comes in.
Yeah.
I won't do it for myself because I've got a ton of sexy excuses, but I'll do it to someone that I'm accountable to.
Right.
So that's why accountability groups and coaching and all of that is super, super important, because you have a third party that you got to be accountable to.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the things that I've learned for sure over the years. So, what I want people to hear as we kind of wind down here is that there is a recipe. There's a recipe for change, there's a recipe for healing, there's a recipe for transformation, and everybody can follow that recipe. Most people won't because of the things that we've talked about, but everybody can follow that recipe. And I know you and I both believe this, that the human being, the human spirit, the human journey is actually quite simple. You know, from if we zoom out, it's actually pretty simple, right? We have these experiences in our past that we decide that's never going to happen again. And then we have ways that we want to compensate for our inadequacies, and we put all our time and energy into those. What's different is the details, right? How do I overcompensate versus how do you overcompensate? Or what's my pain versus what's your pain? But the human journey is actually quite simple. It's not easy emotionally, but it's simple conceptually. And so much of it leads us back to, as we've been talking about, self-esteem. So if there was one final thing that you want people to know, a question or a statement or a story or anything that's on your heart right now, what would it be?
Hmm. One thing that resonates with me is that self-esteem, like I said earlier, is finite. So you got it.
Yeah.
So let's dive in and discover because there's hope. And you, as a human, we won't stay there 100% of the time. But the times that we tap in are worth every second.
Mm.
So the possibility of the fears and understanding that this is normal. Fears are normal. Procrastination is a symptom of the fear. So understanding that, to know that you're not going crazy and you don't have to beat yourself up, that this is the journey with a little accountability and a third party to pull it out of you is just everything. And you'll just do needlepoint moves. But those needlepoint moves are going to give you exponential growth, freedom, joy, trust. Back to that little 3-year-old again. Just do more of that. But it takes a little bit of tweaking and testing.
Yeah. So what I'll add to that is what we've been talking about is the road to stability. I think a lot of people wrestle with their instability in life. And when we feel unstable, then what we try to do to counter the instability generally is to control something. And as you said earlier, humans are uncontrollable, yet that's one of the things that we reach out for our control, or we reach out for our stability. We try to get stability from somebody who's unstable or somebody who has just a little bit of water in their water bottle. And self-esteem is, as the phrase implies, it's dealing with you, yourself. It's not dealing with other people's. There's no such thing as other people's esteem. I mean, they have their own esteem, but their esteem doesn't matter to you in terms of what you can actually control. So doing this kind of work is going to give you the stability that your unconscious mind and your conscious mind craves. But most people are going about it the complete wrong way. And that's why people will focus on trying to increase their self-esteem forever, for years and years and years, reading books and going to seminars and trying to figure it out on their own. And
Your skill set, yeah.
Right. And they really get nowhere in the grand scheme of things because they don't actually have any more stability. And those skill sets that you just talked about, that's not going to give you internal emotional stability. So this concept, this conversation, and the application of this work is going to give people what they really want, but most people aren't searching for that thing exactly. Like if you ask a lot of people what they want in life, they won't usually say emotional stability. They won't say fulfillment. They won't say presence. They won't say any of those things that actually gives us the rich experiences of life. When you ask most people what they want, they're searching for the tangible. They're searching for the intellectual stuff. They're searching for money. They're searching for cars, status, jobs, women, men. They're searching for all those things because they think that those things are going to make them feel good. And piling all those things on top of a self-esteem that's not currently accessible will never make you feel good. It actually increases the distance between you and where you want to be and how you want to feel.
And there could be a lot of money wasted in the process.
Oh, that's true. And it's not sacrificing any of those things to do this work. It actually gives you the ability to take more risk, gives you the ability to do more actions. So as a byproduct of getting that emotional stability, you will increase your accomplishments, but you'll do it from a foundational standpoint rather than a lack standpoint, right? Trying to fill a void that's unfillable through accomplishment. Well, this was fun. Thank you for joining here. And for anybody that wants more info on Danita Sajus, where can they go? Where can they find you?
They can go to DanitaSajus.com and I'll spell it for you. It's Anita with a D, so D-A-N-I-T-A. And the last name is Sajus, S like in Sam, A like in Apple, J like in John, O-U-S like in Sam.com.
Well
Thank you,
done.
Sean.
I can tell that you've spelled that and made sure the letters are clear.
Yeah, I've been spelling it my whole life because S's sound like F's over the phone and it gets all jacked up.
Yeah, and Sajus is such a unique name. So, I think a lot of people might not be able to just spell that right off the bat. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your
Thank you for having me.
Wisdom and the co-creation of the conversation. And hopefully it landed well with everyone and you'll be able to apply. And if you need more help with anything, then reach out. Let us know. We do free consultations to help people understand what their next steps could be and what the healing journey or the success journey or the relationship journey or whatever journey you're on could look like for you.
And it's never, ever too late to have an amazing life.
That's powerful. We'll end on that one. Nice. Thank you, Danita.
Thank you.
If you like this video and you want more of this internal work, check out that video with 10 quick tips to increase your confidence as a speaker. speak from your authentic experiences. And to that end, this is one of the reasons why I'm a big believer that you got to tell your own stories.